Hi guys, today we're having a look at the LucidLink integration that Altana has done with the Cubix product range. So across all of our products, that's Unify, Halo, Connect, and the appliances, you're now able to leverage the native integration we've done with LucidLink. So this is not only for provisioning, but this is also for workspace management as well. So as you probably know, LucidLink is a really quite useful piece of technology which allows users to easily access cloud storage and use it for editing. So a very common setup for this is where you have a number of remote users on Windows or Mac located globally and using it with a range of editing tools, Premiere, Adobe, DaVinci, but it's not limited to just video. It can be used across any kind of form of production and post-production tools. So to try and demonstrate this today, we're going to take a look at the workflow that we've built as an example to show the provisioning end-to-end. And to show this is actually genuinely a remote workflow. I have a colleague of mine, Simon. Hey Simon, how are you doing?
Hey James, how are you doing?
Pretty good, thank you. So as you can see here, I'm located in our studio in London. So I have great connectivity here in London. Simon slightly less so, he's in sunny Shropshire. So about as remote as it gets in the UK for those who know. So what we're going to try and do here is show a workflow where we provision a workspace, a file space as it's known as within LucidLink. We're going to create a default folder structure on there according to some project rules that we've set. And then we're going to try and mount that on Simon's workstation. We're going to do all that automatically from a Cubix workflow. So that's fully orchestrated, fully lights out occurring from the workflow. Now you can trigger this in a number of ways. As you hopefully know about Cubix, it's very, very configurable. So the workflow we built for the demo today, whilst you could use that in a production environment, it's most likely that you're going to trigger this off using our project widget, where you define a project, you define the workspaces, and then on kind of a just-in-time basis, Cubix will provision those workspaces as needed. So you can set go live dates and it will cause it to trigger. But for sake of the demo, let's take a look at what we've got. So as you can see here, I'm going to go into our task interface. And we're going to go ahead and create a new task. And just to sort of show, I have my account here in Lucid. As you can see, I have no workspaces created, which is obviously hopefully going to change as we go through. Now, Simon's never seen this before as well. This is going to be really useful to kind of step through and show both you and Simon how this could work. So first off, of course, I need to go ahead and trigger my task. Now, again, I'm doing this manually right now. There's no need to do this manually. Again, this could be triggered off. For example, like I say, a project creation or other kind of trigger, or even a work order request from a system like Ceta or Zytek, that kind of thing. So first thing I need to go ahead and give my workspace name. So I'm going to call that IBC demo test. And I'm going to choose the file space type. Now in LucidLink, you get three types. You get advanced, basic, and custom. I'm going to go ahead with custom for this one. Cloud storage provider, again, we do support all the cloud storage providers, because just to note here, what we're not only doing here is provisioning the workspace within LucidLink, we're also provisioning the underlying bucket in the relevant storage provider. So Storj is quite an interesting one because that's decentralized, requires no region. But I'm going to stick with AWS on my test today. And because we're in sunny England here, I'm going to go ahead and choose Europe, London as my region. Now, finally, you have to choose the number of users that you want to provision the workspace for. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose the example project one. And then I've got Simon's laptop here as a workstation that I'm going to choose as the mount. And these are basically the ingredients that we need to put into provisioning that workspace. So let's go ahead and submit that task. And we're going to see that task get created. So if I now go back into task flow and go into my save search here where I've got LucidLink, and then here I should see a couple of tasks. So here's one I did before. And then we've got one going through here. So the first thing it's going to do is go through the bucket provisioning process. Now, as mentioned, this is the kind of step before LucidLink. In this case, we're working with S3 to achieve that. And so it's going to go ahead and provision. That's provisioning. In a second here, we'll see that will go into provisioning complete. So that's created an underlying bucket within our S3 region. There we go. That's now complete. And so now we're going to move into the first step of the LucidLink process, which is to actually create the file space within LucidLink. So what we can see is that file space is now being created. In fact, it's already been completed. And if I now go back into my file spaces here, what we can now see is that I've got a file space, but as you can see, it's yet to be initialized. So it's a two-step process. First, you create the file space. Now we have to initialize it. So that should now be moving on. We'll go looking now at the initialization command. So let me go and refresh that. And what we should see here now is that initialization is now completed. So if I get back into here, now we can see it's initialized. And then we're going to move on now and begin to create our default project structure. Now that's completely optional. It's just again something we should demonstrate as part of this this flow that we've got here. Now, project templates are a good way of agreeing a folder structure on your file space for the management of content. So I've got a really simple structure, as we'll see here. If we refresh this, we'll see that those folders have been created. And so we can now go ahead and have a look at that. So what we're going to do now is, if you remember in the start of this, I actually chose for Simon's workstation to be mounted. So as this tasks move on, so let's refresh this, you see now we're going to go into file space mount. So what should happen shortly, Simon, on your machine, as we should see that mount. So if we're going to go ahead and take a look at your screen.
Let me just have a check. So, yep, I can see IBC demo test mounted there with 3 folders in it, yeah.
Perfect, great. So as mentioned, I used a very simple project structure here, but just to show the concept really. So when we provision a workspace, we recommend that you have Cubix create a default folder structure. So here we've got a source materials folder. So that would be where Cubix would deliver source materials to, and we'll show in a second how that works. The project files folder is obviously your Scratch folder for all of your project files as you would have, and everything that you're sending on whatever NLE you're using. So this is Apple Render, is that correct?
Yeah.
Apple Motion. So sorry, I always get that wrong. And then we've got the Cubix ingest folder as well. Now, it all happened quite quickly, but whilst that file space was being created, what also happened was a storage location was configured inside Cubix. Now, a storage location has 2 properties. It has a class and a type. The type obviously is LucidLink in this case, and that simply tells Cubix how to interact with the storage, what APIs and what harnesses to use. But the class tells us how we're going to operationally use it. So in this case, the Cubix ingest folder has been set as a inbox, and the source materials has been set as a outbox, in the sense of I can deliver content to source materials and I can take content from Cubix ingest. So to demonstrate how that works, Simon, can you go ahead and throw some of your finished edit there if you've got one? So what have you been working on for us?
No, I've been working on a little kind of stinger for beginning of our videos here for IBC. A little bit of animation there in motion. So to deliver this to you, I guess the render here I've done in Premiere. I'll just put a bit of a fade out at the back end just so it finishes off neatly. I drop this into Cubix ingest, I guess.
Yep, that's correct.
So there it is.
Perfect. So as mentioned, this is set up as a watch folder. So what we should see quite quickly, obviously there's a slight delay of this because it's actually got to upload it, but there we go, we can see it straight away. So what happens there is the file's been renamed. Now that is entirely optional. It's what we call a destructive import, useful when you want to obfuscate file names, or in this case, for example, you want to give the user a visual cue that the actual import process is finished. So by seeing it's renamed, the operator is now confident that that's now quote unquote in the bank, in the MAM, and he or she can sort of get on with their day. And again, completely configurable if you want to do that. I'm going to go ahead now and jump back to my screen here. So let's go ahead and search for, what was that file called, Simon?
The original file was called Ortana_25.
Cool. Let's go have a look in here. I'm just going to go filter by Ortana, do a search, and there we go. We can see the file that you dropped in there with the thumbnail. I can see it was 17 seconds, 23 frames long. So yeah, no, that sounds good. Yep, so we don't have a proxy yet. Obviously the file's only literally just been thrown into the system. But because this is now an asset in the Cubix asset management on a storage location, this now behaves like any other asset in the system. So can now trigger workflows that we can configure, task flows as we call them. And those task flows could be a range of things, for archival, proxy generation, checksumming, AI indexing, obviously quite a useful one to do. So to put that content through a range of AI engines, again, fully configurable as to which engine we use and what checks are done. And that would add to the metadata. But in here now I can see, for example, if we go into technical metadata, I can see that it's a 1080 asset, 25 frames per second. I can see also the track layout probably as well in here in a second. And also here I can then take actions. I can do sort of transfers, transcodes and so forth from here. So that's now in Cubix, and as mentioned is like any other asset. And so if we were to go look at, for example, one of our Halo portals. So here, for example, I've got our Boulder Creek portal here, one of our clients. So if I go ahead and do a search here, you'll see this is our Halo portal and how you can easily search and browse content. Now, this content can be across a range of those storage locations. This could be in LucidLink, this could be on-prem, in Deep Glacier. Again, all obfuscated from the user, simplified and made really easy to search through. And I can search through any of the metadata that we hold, which can be simple file names. In the case of the asset Simon's provided, obviously we only really have a file name at this point. But if it's gone through a metadata process, you see that we have a schema here for this particular client. Again, fully configurable as to what filters you have. And of course, if we were using AI indexing, that would create a whole load of additional timeline-based metadata for people, places, locations, objects, profanity searching, those kind of things that we can add in. So in the Halo portal, when you hover over an asset, it's video, audio, or image, we'll see a preview, a proxy of that asset play, as well as some configurable metadata. So it's very easy for me to quickly step through and check which asset I want to work for. Now, as mentioned before, we had that source materials folder. So if I want to deliver content to Simon to be able to edit, so either Simon can come in here and do that selection, or maybe I'm part of the marketing team and I'm choosing my source assets I want my editor to work with. I can come into here, and what I can do is I can either put content straight into what by default is called the basket, though it's fully configurable as to what that is, or also I can be putting content into bins. And I can either do that on the basis of a whole asset. So I'll take this asset here, for example, and I can choose this to put it into a bin. Choose the bin I want to add to, or if I go into an asset, what we'll see here is I can actually mark in and mark out. So if I have some kind of long B-roll content or rushes where it's an hour long of content and I only need a short selection, I can come in here and I can frame accurately mark in and mark out those different sections we've got. And again, that clip can then either be added to the bin or we can add that directly again into the basket. So once I've curated my content together, again, either by putting it into a bin and then adding the bin to the basket, or by putting the content directly into the basket, what you can then see is I can then choose what workflow that I want to configure. Now, I don't have any enabled on this portal, but this is where we can configure what workflows you'd like to trigger. And a workflow really can be anything that you would like to do that Cubix is capable of. So this could be transcoding, this could be distribution to a social media platform, this could be restoring to an on-prem storage, or in this case, restoring to the LucidLink file space that we've created. So you can see very easily how finished content can come into the system, be indexed and then made available for future workflows, or we can do the reverse where we're taking content that's already in Cubix and pushing it back into LucidLink. Now, another thing to bear in mind is that we've obviously dealt with the getting content in and getting content out, but what about Simon's project? Backup is a key thing that we should be wary of. And this is something to understand about Cubix, is that as we've seen, Cubix is able to help us with both the provisioning side of things, but also the media side of things. And this is something we can also then put into play for backups. So that folder that we've got on Simon's storage there, what we could do is, for example, configure a backup process, which would initially back up the projects folder. So this will take that backup and push it to your choice of nearline storage. This is any form of cloud storage you want to work with. This could be Storj, AWS, Wasabi, again, all configurable as to what you do. And then either on a full backup or snapshot basis at a configurable interval, we can go in, see what files have changed, and only then back up those that have changed since the last time. And that could run, say, every 2 hours or 12 hours. Again, you can choose the frequency. You then have the ability within Cubix to then restore that backup as and when you need to. So basically, and if we've had a failure here, not necessarily through any fault of LucidLink, but maybe the operator simply gone in and accidentally deleted everything, we can do that restoration very, very quickly from the Cubix task flow. So that's a real thing to bear in mind. With Cubix, we're bringing together now the traditional MAM and media orchestration side of things, as well as data orchestration and provisioning, and putting it all under one system. And there are some natural synergies that we get as part of that. So in summary, we've seen how we've been able to create a workspace from scratch, including the actual storage provider if you're using an external one. We've been able to initialize that workspace. We've created a default project structure, and we've managed to mount it automatically on our editor's workstation, even in sunny Shropshire. So whilst we've seen a lot of things happen, a number of complicated steps, and it's quite a data-heavy view on this side. From a user perspective, Simon, I mean, you did nothing, right? It just appeared on your machine.
No, exactly. The share appeared on my machine. I had the 3 folders there, and I could literally just drop the file in and not even have to worry about it. And especially knowing that it's also going to be backed up as well for me, then that's perfect.
Yeah, And that's the key thing. I mean, with LucidLink, if we think about the standard user, they are a creative individual, not a technical individual. So obviously their expertise are not necessarily around working with operating systems and mounting storage. And so what we want to do is, using this workflow, really simplify the experience down to the absolute simplest we can, which I think that's what we've achieved here. I mean, you've literally had to do nothing. And from my point of view as a system administrator, all I had to do is click a few mouse clicks to define my project. And as mentioned, you would normally in production kind of do that using, for example, our project widget, where again, the business rules would understand the project you're doing, the resources you require, and provision on a kind of just-in-time basis. Awesome. Well, look, I think that's a great run through. We will be showing this at IBC this year. If you want to come see us in Hall 1, do pop by. Otherwise, obviously, do just get in touch. We're happy to arrange an online demo for this. We're also a big believer in you guys being able to try the system. So underneath both Cubix Halo and Cubix Connect, you're able to get a free trial of this for 30 days, and you can test that with your LucidLink storage, your choice of cloud provider, and actually try this with your asset and see if it's a good fit for yourself. So if that's of interest, please do get in touch. Thank you very much for your time for watching. Thank you, Simon, for helping in sunny Shropshire.
Thank you.
And see you all again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, James. Thank you.